Like the time to address your debt problem is before you get your first credit card. Is understand what debt is for. That's the time when you're 20s. But the 20-year-olds are not thinking that. Just like the person who's healthy is not thinking about taking vitamins. So when they get to my age, they don't have some chronic something or other, headaches or whatever. One of the truths that's revealed in Scripture is poverty is a result of spiritual warfare. Wherever you find poverty is because of spiritual warfare. And you say, Carlos, where do you get that? From Genesis chapter 3, the fall. Soon as there is no lack in the garden, none. There's no lack amongst God's creative order until the fall. Once the fall comes, one of the curses which is on the land, right, is now out of the sweat of your brow, and you're going to work the fields, and the field will produce thorns and thistles. So provision is turned into lack after the fall. So anytime you see lack now, whether it's something like an impoverished third world nation, that's not what God had designed. It's never part of the plan, okay? It comes right out of the fall. There is remedy for it, which is what we're going to talk about a little bit today. There is remedy, but the remedy needs to come and be led by God's people. That's why we're talking today about generosity. So when Paul talks to the church of Corinth, he talks about the goal being equality. Okay, that's the goal. So God is looking at it. So sometimes we're looking at God and God, why are there impoverished people on the face of the earth? God, don't you see what's happening in Haiti? And God is like, dude, I'm waiting for you guys to fall in line, get in alignment with kingdom principles so I can use you, flow through you to impact the nations of the earth, to impact third world nations, to impact children who are in foster care, to impact, missions teams to the Philippines, all this kind of stuff. So it really is a call for Christians, a reminder for me of what I do. And it should be a call to the church that we're doing something wrong. Like, wait a second, there's something fundamentally missing. Like, we shouldn't just see those things and say, oh, well. Like, it's a call to say, okay, now do something. Remember the Macedonian cry, right? Paul says, I heard a cry out in Macedonia, come and visit. Okay, so we as a church need to be that sensitive to say, where is God moving? Where is God working? Where is the modern day Macedonia cry? So that a third world nation within the Western Hemisphere, goodness gracious, like so close to our shores, should exist. That there should be such need and poverty within our borders. That really is. It's an indictment on the church, but it's all a realization that it's a spiritual warfare. Okay. Right? Spiritual warfare. Like, the enemy is gleeful when he sees people down and out, impoverished, unable to eat, famine, dying of starvation. That's like his specialty. He comes to steal, kill, destroy. Okay. And so we, in our roles to disrupt the roles of the enemy, what the enemy is doing, need to see that and say, oh, no, I've got a role to play here. Something. So this is not just a class about intersection of faith and finances, like, how do I get out of debt? Well, all right, let's talk about that. It's one of those things, like, that's such a limited, that's the how-to question, as opposed to, remember I said before, the why question. Better question is, why do I get out of debt? Why do you get out of debt? Because of the royal family kids. Have you looked them in the eye yet? Because of what's happening in Haiti. Have you turned on the news yet? Because of what's happening in the Philippines. Have you talked to any of the missionaries that we sent, what they saw? Or are you worried about, oh, I can't pay my Sears credit card? Like, okay, I know we got to start somewhere, but if that's the extent of what we think faith and finances is, the intersection of faith and finances is like my Amex card, we got a lot of work to do. I got a lot of work to do, because that's specifically, I think, what God has called me to. Well, I think especially the economics of Haiti become fascinating. So when I went, one of the things that we learned was this idea of them, this mindset, and maybe you could even say it's not a necessity, but I think it's a colonialized mindset. Colonialized mindset whereby even when they've sent in groups, and I think maybe when we went, maybe the sponsor might have been World Vision, I think it was. was. So World Vision, they obviously do tremendous works all over the world. And when they started doing works and working with other missionary groups within the island of Haiti, one of the things that the residents of Haiti, they were accustomed to was, give us resources, give us, whether it's food, water, machinery, whatever it is. And then when it breaks, they would basically say, okay, now you have to come and fix it. And so if I recall correctly, World Vision came in and said, no, we will give it to you. If it breaks, you have to fix it yourself. All right, you can't remain as a needy child forever. We will give you resources. If you take the resources, invest in the resources, learn the lessons, amplify, what we've given you and grow it. Stewardship really is what it is. Stewardship model, so that ultimately you're responsible for your own national recovery. And one of the things that's a continual challenge, and I think it still is something as simple as, let's say, a tree. So if you have a tree, a fruit-producing tree on your land, what you should do is cultivate it. So now you have 2 fruit-producing trees, and 2 is 5, and 5 is 10, et cetera, et cetera. What they wind up doing is they cut it down. You say, why did you cut down your fruit-producing tree? Oh, well, it gets cold at night, so we needed resources. So it's very short-term, myopic way, nearsighted way of thinking.
Yeah, that's a third world thing.
Right. So it's like
third world thing.
It's like now I remain impoverished because the very source that could have been a path to me, my family, to get out, although it would have taken time, I've not gone down that road because I needed something in the moment. It's a third world, but you know what? There's an interesting conversation to have. I'm recording it, so I'm glad I'm having it. It's a third world thing. I think it's more than that as well, increasingly. And so one of the things I'm starting to study out, we spend more on medication to relieve pain medication, than we spend on vitamins. So think about that for a second, because it's symptomatic. If I have a headache, if I have a migraine, I will go to the store, make the investment, get whatever it is, Tylenol, the Midol, to relieve the pain. And if you go into my medicine cabinet, it's stocked, right? It's got Bromosul, so it's got stuff for the stomach, the head, the fever, the flu, Nyquil, Dayquil. It's got the whole thing, right? It got a whole thing. And in my family, we have it for the babies and for the teens, every age group. So literally, it's a whole decked out. And then how many of us in the household take vitamins? Because right now, I might be vitamin deficient. I probably am with my diet.
I know I am.
Right. So I'm probably vitamin deficient. What it is to say is we address things as they become painful to us. As they become painful, we address them in the immediate. And we're more concerned about the immediate now than the long term, which could actually be more effective. So if I said, listen, you've been suffering from migraines for 10 years, this is, and I'm a doctor, let's say, and I'm not a doctor, and I'm just making this up, but it could be true that an MD or someone who knows this, an herbalist, might say, here's a regimen that you need to take daily for the next 5 years. And in 5 years, you will never have migraine problems again. People are much less likely to do that because we don't invest in vitamins, we invest in meds, pain medication. Or the other way to put it, let's talk about finances, we are quick to invest in things that are quick hit, fix me now. Those are the calls I get. Carlos, I need debt relief. And I'm already calling the bankruptcy lawyer, right? I'm like, dude, when did you realize you started to have a problem? 10 years ago, but now it's critical. Carlos, can you help me get out of debt? Yeah, how many years do you have? Years, I want this done in a couple of weeks. So you want to turn your whole financial picture around in a couple of weeks. Kind of like the time to address your debt problem is before you get your first credit card, is understand what debt is for. That's the time when you're 20s, but the 20-year-olds are not thinking that. Just like the person who's healthy is not thinking about taking vitamins. So when they get to my age, they don't have some chronic something or other, headaches or whatever. So I think there is something that's common. Maybe it's more amplified in, let's say, in a third world nation, because I think it really is issues of survival. Like literally, I will not last through this weather or through this winter if I don't cut down this tree, which is my only resource for heat or barter or whatever. Like, dude, but you're cutting out all future crops. I'll worry about that later. It's a very common mindset. So anyway, that's why I say things like this in Haiti are very, very complicated. And there's lots, in fact, yeah, you could say it's economic, yes. It's political, yes. The root cause is spiritual. And I do strongly believe that there needs to be, that the church needs to have a coordinated response. And that's why I think, one of the things I always find fascinating, when the scripture says that the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the righteous. I'm like, why would God do that? God who owns it all the silver, all the gold, cattle on 1,000 hills. And who does he invest it in? Who does he say, here, hold this? It's not his people. He doesn't go to his people and say, hey, hang on to this. Now, maybe it's because he understands how corrupting wealth can be. Or there's maybe another thing that we're going to talk about next week, that maybe they do a better job at it. Could it be, I'm going to tease out next week, could it be that according to Luke chapter 16, that the people are not God's people, actually do better with their resources? Because there's certain things that they understand that we don't understand. And I would like to suggest we used to understand it because we haven't always served the Lord, but somehow we forgot it. There's something about the faith, Christianity, churchianity, something about that mindset, right? Mindset and beliefs that works against us. That's what I'm going to talk about next week. Under influence. That's one of the closing lessons. And maybe some of this is what we were talking about a moment ago, about that we tend to make our investments in pain. Like I'll buy pain medication because I also use this analogy. It's easier for me to have a person, it's easier for me to have a conversation with a person about getting out of debt. That's a pain point. Than it is about, hey, I want to talk to you about the intersection of faith and finances. There is not a person who woke up this morning saying, man, I don't understand the intersection of faith and finance. There, not one. So what I'm doing, in a sense, is I'm teaching how to address your vitamin deficiencies in faith. But I have to also be sensitive to the fact that most people don't look at it that way. Most people, they get moved not by the fact that there's something that could be helpful to them. They're moved only by what is my pain point. And I will say this, it's not only an issue of finances and possessions. Most people come into the faith how? They come into the faith because of problems, because of brokenness, because of dysfunction, because of something is wrong. Most people, when life is just like steaming along and they're healthy and they're doing well financially and their relationships are working and the kids are acting right and all this. A lot of people who are not in the faith, they have no desire to come to the faith all of a sudden. It's very common. People come to the faith, they call out to God when things are bad. So I think that's part of the human condition. It's not just about finances and possessions. But I think it is one of the challenges that we need to contend with, and we have to start with ourselves. So we have to ask ourselves, okay, God, to what extent do I really seek things out? To what extent do I pursue things? To what extent do I seek you or seek to know things just to alleviate a pain point? And then, is there a more excellent way that you can show me, Lord? Like, what's the vitamins that you got for me, Lord? Like, I don't need, I need it. I really, really need it, but I don't know that I need it because it's not a felt need, right? So you ask a 25-year-old Christian, what do you really, really need? They say, I really, really need companionship. I really, really need deliverance from unforgiveness or from, the struggles of my life or sin or, my economic condition, whatever. They're going to talk to you about the pain points very often, right? They're not, some might come to a point genuinely where they're saying, I just want a deeper walk with God. Well, even then, why is it? Because I realize I've got everything else and nothing is fulfilling. There's an emptiness there. So again, this idea of like we're looking for the medicine, not looking for the vitamins. Does that make sense?
Mhm.